Hello and welcome back to my channel today, and welcome to day 5 of the 12 Days of Christmas Stories that I am participating in with a lot of my lovely crafty scrappy friends. And that was started and is being coordinated by Becky. So today I thought I would come back and I would show you some cards, some Christmas cards. I had stopped that whole tradition of Christmas cards many years ago. And about 5 years ago, I guess, I started again on a very small scale, just a few cards here and there, because I felt like making some cards and giving some handmade little gifts. And it snowballed a little bit. And this year, I think I counted that I will be sending out about 50 or more Christmas cards and receiving somewhere in that same order. And you know what? Christmas cards make lovely decorations. I don't have a Christmas tree. I do decorate my house quite a bit. I don't put a Christmas tree up because my little Chopin thinks that all those lovely baubles are toys, so we don't do Christmas trees. And I actually use the Christmas cards as part of my decoration. But I really wanted to come on today and also show you that some Christmas cards can be very simple, some can be involved, and anywhere in between. So I thought I would start with these sort of easier categories. I love to do some just simple stamping and die cutting. Christmas cards are the perfect time to get those dies out, those punches out, and use up a lot of scraps. And that's really what I do, as well as maybe some coloring of stamped images, which is something I love to do year long as well, all year long. So the first little category of cards are probably the simplest ones, and I think I actually showed you this particular one on an earlier video. Basically, all of this is using the negative space from a die. So I have a Christmas tree die, and I will use the Christmas tree on another card, and before actually stamping and die cutting my tree, I cut my white cardstock into 3x3 or a little bit less than 3x3 so I can mat it on 3x3. And then I stamp and die cut right in the middle so that I have this lovely negative. I just back it with a piece of pattern paper, put a little star. I use one of my little EK Success punches, stamp Joy to All, and then mount this on some foam. I'll show you a little bit later the difference that just mounting on foam can do to give a little bit of dimension, a little bit of a shadow. Then I mounted on, here's some white cardstock that I put through an embossing folder. And there you have it. These cards take, and this is using up some scrap, using up some negative, and not wasting some cardstock. And each of these cards takes maybe 5 minutes. So here is another one in the whites, and this looks maybe a little bit like, this is actually a little snowflake embossing folder, and we did exactly the same thing on this one. So these are fun and quite easy to do. Then the next thing that I love to do is, again, some simple stamping. This is just a snowflake stamp that I have. And a snowflake die, so just some repeat stamping, and I use just a 4 1/4. All my cards are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so the standard A2 size card. And I do put a little bit of dimension, but I'm very careful not to put too much dimension on these cards so that I can get them in the mail fairly easily and still just the price of a Christmas card stamp. So here we go. And then you see what I will often do is get this design. This is by no means my design. I found this either on Pinterest or maybe even in the Stampin' Up! Catalog one year. this kind of card, and then I will do maybe 5 or 6 of the same card. I like to have several models, but I will do 5 or 6 of the same card, so that makes it go a lot easier as well. And then I will batch, stamp, die cut the snowflakes, cut all my circles out using just a circle die. Then I will ink the edges, use some little scraps here, stamp a sentiment, and I just do a quick little fishtail banner here. This one is wishing you a festive season. And then I will glue everything down. Now you see this is all one layer, and then I just popped up the snowflakes. So this one goes quite quickly as well. These are fairly quick. Then this is another just stamping. This is a stamp I borrow from a friend of mine, and I just do the basic stamp. And then die cut it out with one of my just little circle stamps. And this is another, you see, here's one. These are Spellbinder dies. This is a larger one. You'll see I use it elsewhere. That just gives this lovely little scalloped detail, which I think is quite lovely. And then I can just mount my stamp on there flat. Use some pattern paper here as well. And you see here I put, and we'll see a little bit later the difference it makes if you just mat your pattern paper on a white or cream cardstock, depending on your color scheme, before applying it to the blue. You would see there that gives it more dimension, a lot more interest. It makes a very, very big difference. So I just mapped this, a very, very thin mat. I think the entire thing is like 1/8, so it gives 1/16 all the way around. And then here I just put a strip, which is left over from this same cardstock. Stamped the Merry Christmas, and this is just a punch. It's a washi tape punch, I think, that I actually have. Then I mount the stamped image on some foam, and I put 2 little enamel dots. And the enamel dots that I tend to use on my Christmas cards are the flatter ones. So the Your Next stamp, Simple Stories, as opposed to gems or rhinestones, which would give a lot more dimension. Although here you see I did use rhinestones, but it does give a little bit more dimension. So this is about as much as it could be to get this in the mail. And by putting it on here, I may be precluding mailing this particular card and having to just give it with some of the gifts to the locals this year. So that is another one. So all of these 3 types of cards, really, once the stamping is done and you batch cut the die cutting and you do exactly, see this one I made 6 of as well, they maybe take 10 minutes or so. I think this particular one I did last Saturday, and I think I did all 6 of them in about an hour in the afternoon while I was doing some laundry. Makes laundry a lot more fun, don't you think? There we go. Then something fun I discovered this year. Now, I have no idea whether this is something completely new, if any of you have ever seen it or done it, but this was certainly something completely new to me this year. And this is a Stampin' Up! Stamp set and die set. But then this year, I also bought the pattern paper that went with this. And lo and behold, what they've done is the dies work on the pattern paper. Is that not cool? They just work on the pattern paper. So there you go. In all sorts of different ways. You see here we have the Santa on this piece of paper. The little signpost, the elves are on here. I don't know which one this is. Probably this one, yeah. See, there you go. So look how, I mean, oh my God, this is so easy. So this card is just so easy as well. So what I did here is I just did a square in the white pattern paper, and I just went around here with my little pokey tool. Went around with a little pokey tool, so add a little bit of stitching, just add a little bit of interest. Die cut on here, I die cut my Santa. Used just one big mat of pattern paper on the back and two little bits. So this was actually a branding strip, so I think I cut it in 3, did a little fishtail. This is the back side of this pattern paper that I just did here to give a little bit of interest, and there again I just popped up the Santa Claus. So another very, very easy one. So far these cards are very quick, very easy, and a lot of fun. And I love just getting and sending a little bit of handmade happiness. So let me just turn these over. Oh, my goodness me, put this back here so that I have a little bit of piece of paper. And then let's look at maybe a little bit more involved, although once they're done, they're not very involved. So then I do love to do some stamped images and coloring stamped images. I use Copic markers, and I just love sitting down sometimes on an afternoon, relaxing and doing some coloring. Or the days that I work, I tend to not get home before about 7 o'clock in the evening, so I really have not much time to do any crafting, so sometimes I can just color up a little stamp. And what I do with my Copic markers is once I've colored it up once, I keep a little notebook and I keep track of all of the colors I've used for the cat, the scarf, the tree, the bird, the flower pot. And then after that, the coloring can go a lot faster because I'm not thinking about what colors I need to use. I'm just relaxing and playing and coloring. And then for these cards, the stamped images basically tend to be the focal point of the card. So there is very little to do after that except for mounting the stamped image on some mats. And there you have it, and maybe a little bit of a sentiment, and on some of them I might not even put a sentiment. This here I tend to use my scraps up. This I have like a Ziploc bag full of little Christmas paper scraps, and here I use my scraps. So again, all just on my white card base. I colored up, is this not cute? These little birds. This was a present a friend of mine gave me for my birthday a few years back, and I think the stamp company is Sunny Rose or Sunny something. It's a UK stamp company anyway, and these little guys are just gorgeous. So here is where I wanted to talk to you a little bit about adding some mats and how that can add some depth and dimension and a lot more interest to your cards. So you see here, we'll take another one that I have. So we have this stamp set here, and I've mounted them just on some red cardstock to do a nice little frame. And I've used the same red cardstock on my card base. Now you see here, I can add this directly. It's quite pretty. I can add this directly on there and have a nice little contrast and a lovely, but it sort of blends into the background a little bit, but it would still be absolutely perfect if you just wanted to do one little layer and then add your stamp right on there. That is a perfect, beautiful little card. Very easy to do. You could put the little sentiment here or not at all, or you could stamp a larger sentiment inside. But now you see, let's see what happens if here we just add a little white, very, very thin white border. Now you see straight away, doesn't that already add, and you see it here as well, some more interest, a little bit of depth, and give the illusion of a lot more dimension. So there you go. Then one more thing that you could actually do is then, of course, just put your stamped image right, glue it right on here. And again, perfectly usable, beautiful, lovely card that most people would love to receive. But then we can also just add a little bit of dimension. I just used some foam here. This is some foam I found on Amazon. I think it was like 12 sheets. They're like 8.5 by 11 sheets for $12.99 Canadian. They are not sticky on one side. You have to glue them on both, but still I have these things forever now. I have a foam for a very, very long time. So there you see. So now just adding that little bit of dimension, and there again, you get a little bit more interest, a little bit more dimension, and again, for very, very, very little effort. So there you go, some little fun stamped images. And here's the last ones that I have to share with you today, which are again, some little stamped images that I colored in. In here, we used some a less traditional color scheme. I love this sort of aqua color with the red. I think it's beautiful, and then just a little bit of sort of craft or a neutral color. But to give it some pop, I used in the my scallop die here, I used it in the red to give it again a little bit of pop. And here you see we have two different forms. Still the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This one in landscape, and this one you see is a top folding, which I think is very cute as well. It gives a little bit of a different look. Same kind of thing. All I did here was use some pattern paper in the back and then a small strip across the middle. And if you can see here, I basically use exactly the same design, but because the sizing is different, the format is different, it does give a little bit of a different look. And this just gives a little bit of contrast, a place for your eye to rest, and the stamped image to pop out instead of it being directly just on one pattern paper where it would maybe disappear a little bit more. You see, if we just put it here, you would not have the same kind of contrast. So that gives it a little bit more contrast. So there you go. Now, again, I would say once I've colored an image once, and once I've taken notes and written down the Copic colors that I use, each image maybe takes me maybe 15. This one quite simple, so maybe 15 minutes. And this kind of stamp, which is maybe a little bit more elaborate, maybe 20-25 minutes. And the little kitty cat here, perhaps about the same thing. Now, what I tend to do, for instance, on this kind of stamp, for the little dots in the scarf and the Christmas baubles here, I don't really tend to do any shading. I don't think you really need to do any shading. As I did here with the red, I didn't do any shading on the red, but I did do a little bit of shading with the yellow here because there was a little bit of extra space. So there you go. So there's some Christmas card ideas. Do you send Christmas cards? Leave me a comment in the comment section below. Do you send Christmas cards? Do you receive Christmas cards? Do you like Christmas cards? So talk to me about Christmas cards. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you would like me to put a video up showing the coloring maybe a little bit more, or at least showing one stamped image colored with all of the Copics that I use with it, or show you my little notebook. And please, as every day, go see all my friends' videos. All the links will be down below. Talk to you soon. See you tomorrow for one more video. Bye.